Hello folks, this is video number 30 for the playlist devoted to the 3D Experience CATIA generative shape design application. Uh, this video goes into the playlist that deals with the surface tab, because there's another playlist for the wireframe tab, but this goes into the surface tab playlist. The particular icon under consideration is an advanced icon, the sweep icon, and the profile type is a line because we already did for the profile type being an explicit curve that you draw and use that as a profile. Several videos on that, and then I switched to the subtype being or profile type being a line, and there are 7 cases that can rise, and the previous video was for cases 1, 2, and 3, and this one is for case 4 and 5, which is with the reference subtype being a reference curve and with the tangency surface. Okay, so let me clarify what I mean by that. When you are in the generative shape design uh, and select the surface tab, the sweep icon is hiding there, and when you click on it, this dialog box opens up. There are 4 major profile types. The top is the left side is the explicit one, already done. This one is for a line, and the previous video did 3 cases for that line, you'll see, and this current one will do 2 more. So what do I mean by that? When you look at the line, linear case, there are 7 options here. 2 limits, limit and middle with reference surface. These were done in the previous video. Now we're going to do with reference curve and with tangency surface. And the next video is going to be dealing with these 2 other cases. So altogether, there's 21. When you take these 4 into consideration and every subtype, there's 21 possibilities. Now, the Google AI gives you a quick meaning of what does it mean to talk about the reference curve, and I'll do that in a minute. But anyway, it's there. If you want, you can read it. But here's what happens. So when dealing with the reference curve, we have 2 curves involved: a guide curve and a reference curve. Okay. So when we select our guide curve, automatically is used as the spine of the surface to be generated. So for example, when you select a point on, or not you, but the software selects a point on the guide curve, this is also a spine. The normal to this curve is considered right there, normal to the spine. And this normal to the spine plane hits the reference curve at a point right there, and then essentially this point is connected to that point, and this is done for every point and a surface generated. Now you have the option of specifying an angle there. So when you do that, it takes this line and use that the angle that you specify to kind of rotate it, and then it connects all these red curves, red lines together to generate the surface, which is the case under consideration. In other words, based on a reference curve. Okay. Now, the CATIA v5 version of this tutorial can be found here, and this is also a good reference for doing that. Now, the help, online help in 3D Experience gives you this page, and then of course, after I'm done with that, some examples, I'm going to do the case number 5, which is with tangency curve. And here's a description of the help in CATIA, but the experience CATIA, but we'll do examples. Okay. All right. First, I'm going to look at the case of with a reference curve. Okay, sweep with the reference curve, linear sweep with the reference curve, and I'm going to start with two lines. In other words, the reference curve being a line and the uh, guide curve being a line. Okay, and I'll just happen that I'll draw it in the same plane. Okay, not same, not in the same sketch, but same plane. So let's go ahead and on this horizontal plane XY, I'm going to draw a line like that. Okay, exit. All right, and this is going to be my sketch one, and I'll rename this thing to be so that it says it is uh, guide curve, guide curve, just so that I have a better idea of what these things are. Guide curve. Okay, good. And in the same plane, same XY plane, not the same sketch, same XY plane, I'm going to draw another line like so, exit, and I'm going to change this, the name of this to be uh, uh, reference curve. Okay, so I'm going to call it reference curve. Reference curve. Okay, very good. Okay, so now the surface tab, we have a sweep, and the type is linear, you can see that. And I'm going to be using with the reference curve right here with the reference curve. Notice that it asks us to select guide curve, and I made this thing to be my guide curve, just randomly, guide curve. And for the reference curve, I selected this to be my reference curve. Okay, now, a couple of things. Notice that the angle says 0, no problem. And there is a default value of 20 millimeter for length 1 that's selected. Let me make this thing 0 and see what happens. When I make this thing 0 and I say preview, I can't see nothing. That's because the plane, the surface that's generated by these two is going to be a flat surface. And these numbers control the length of, which is used to create that surface. What do I mean by that? Suppose I make this thing 5. Now, as soon as I make this thing 5, notice that I can preview. When it was 0, I could not. So I say preview, see what happens here. What it did, it actually created the surface going this way 5. If I make this thing, for example, 25, preview, there we are. So the reason that when this was 0, I could not see nothing is because there was no surface. Now, if I make this thing length 2, let's say 30, preview, it'll go in the other direction. So you can see what happens. It took my spine, which was this curve, drew perpendicular planes to it, found the intersection of the plane with that other curve, reference curve, connected the two by that much. Now, look at what happens here. If I choose the angle, oh, by the way, this shows you the four solution, but there's not going to be any difference between them, okay? Just leave it the way it is right now. Suppose I change this angle from 0 to, say, 24 degrees. And then I say preview. What it does, it tilts. It tilts this surface by 15 degrees. So that is where this graph is coming into the picture. So it connected these two, and then it tilts this thing by 24 degrees, 25 degrees, and connects all these things together, you get a surface. So that's what this thing is. You can also do the limiter, the relimiters, and that will show me only a portion of that, but I'm not going to do that because we have done this thing a lot. Now, what I'm going to do is I will change these graphs. I will change these graphs from a line to a curve. Say, okay, this is fine. All right. I'm going to go to this sketch one. Instead of a line, I'm going to turn this into construction because I don't want to delete it, but I'm going to use a spline. So for example, I don't know, doesn't matter. It can be anywhere. It really doesn't have to be starting there. So here's a spline. I'll make it like that. Exit. Notice that the curve changed, by the way. And I'm going to change this also to that sketch and change that to a spline. I can leave it as a line, but I want to do it as a spline. And change this into a construction. So exit. There we are. So let's see what the process is, what the process was. This was my guide curve, which is my spine. At every point, a plane normal to that was created. And the intersection of that plane with this curve was found, with this reference curve was found, okay? Those 2 points are connected to each other, the intersection point and the point where the spine plane was created. And then it tilts it by the amount that I said. For example, if I go here, if I make this thing 0, see what happens? Okay, it doesn't tilt it. But if I go make this thing, let's say, I don't know, 50 degrees, there we are. So, okay, let's go and make this thing really ugly. So we go here, and I'm going to make this thing. At some point, things may break. You just keep that in mind. You can't do randomly whatever you want because you may not be able to generate the surface. So let's try to make it more complicated, like that. Exit. He says, I can't do it. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go back here to that reference curve. Clean it up. Let's see if we can do with this. Yep, that one you can. And these surfaces are all different. They may look the same to you, but they're different. In fact, if you double click on this, by the way, notice that there are different solutions here. I said, don't worry about it. Now we go to the next one. Preview. See that? Here's another one. Next one. Preview. Okay. Some of these may be the same, by the way. Say, okay. Let me go here and make this thing ugly. Maybe I'll make it like that. It's not too ugly, but that one worked. No problem. So it is important to go back to this picture and see what is being done here. Incidentally, I made it so that these are this sketch, this one, which was reference curve, was in the same plane as that. It doesn't have to be. Let me show you how. For example, here's what I'm gonna do. Let me delete the sweep. Actually, let me do it a different way. I'll keep this thing the way it is. I'm going to create a plane offset from this plane, right there. Okay. And on this plane, I will draw a curve. Can be a line, can be a spline. It really doesn't matter. I just draw a spline. Exit. You can notice that no longer this guide curve and that reference curve are in the same plane. They're in different planes. You can see that. Okay. I don't want to see this. I'm going to hide it. I don't want to see this. I want to hide it. This is the one that is in a different plane. I'm going to hide this sweep for now. I'm going to hide this sweep for now. Okay, let's go and do another sweep, linear with a reference curve. So here's my guide curve. This time for the reference curve, I select this curve, which is not in the same plane as that. Preview. There we are. So the shape of the spine and the shape of the guide curve, reference curve, will dictate what's going on. So for example, if I say, show me the other one, there we are. Two different curves, two different surfaces. The moral of the story is that in generative shape design, you can do things. It may give you surfaces, but it's a good idea to have an idea of what was happening in simple cases. Simple cases, one can interpret it and explain and even predict how it's going to look like. But generally speaking, these surfaces are very complicated, or these curves, these guide curves and reference curves are very complicated. It may not be able to generate the surface. And in fact, or even if it does it, it's going to be very difficult to interpret. So that takes care of the first case, namely with the reference curve. Now we're going to do the other one. Okay, so now I'm going to be using the subtype, which is, let's see now, is with tangency surface. Okay, so this is my first example. I'll draw a circle, exit, and extrude it. Now notice that if you want to make a cylinder, there are other ways of doing it too, but I decided to draw a circle and extrude it. Okay, good. Now let me hide the sketch. Now what I want to do on that vertical plane, I want to draw a spline, something like this, exit. So basically I have a surface and I have a guide curve. So if I go to sweep, and use the linear option, line option, and the fifth possibility, fifth choice that you have with tangency surface, look at what it's asking, guide curve. There is my guide curve. Tangency surface. There is my tangency surface. And we are hoping that it can pass a surface through that guide curve, which is tangent to that cylinder. Obviously, it's not. No problem. So let me cancel that. Let me go back here and make some changes. Maybe like that, maybe simpler. Exit. Do it now. So we go to, again, sweep, guide curve, tangency surface. There. Look, there is no guarantee that what you want is going to take place. So there we are. There's also limitation. There's also limitation. Also, under relimiters, you can just restrict this thing to a certain area. But there's also, it tells you that there are two solutions. Notice that there's two solutions. Next one is going to give you this. Next one is going to give you the first one. There are multiple solutions here. Okay, I want to do a second example. Let me start with another clean file. So I'm going to draw a surface, complicated surface here. So on that XY plane, I will draw a rectangle, exit, good. And I will make a point, I will create a point. Let me actually go there. Let me make this thing so that it is kind of like so, because I want to create a point that is above that rectangle that I drew. And the coordinates are not important, but I want to make sure that it goes above that. And you know what? I'll make it go also to, it really doesn't matter, to the left. It doesn't matter. Okay, so here's the situation. I have a rectangle here, and I have a point up there. So what I want to do is to make a surface that passes through that rectangle and through that point. And to do that, remember, I want to remind you that we go to the fill, F-I-L-L. We have done videos for this. And the outer boundary is right here. And we want advanced option. We want to make sure it passes through this point. And preview. There we are. Okay, let me hide that sketch. Now, I want to create a curve up there. So the easiest way for me to do that, I will go and create an offset plane from this, move it up. Okay. And on it, I'm going to draw a curve. So on that plane, I will sketch. Okay. How about a curve spline? Okay, how about a spline? Because I may have to change this thing because my spline may be so ugly that it cannot do it. So let me just, for now, make it like this. Exit. So what I have, let me hide these planes if I don't want to see them. I'm going to hide that. Okay, good. All right. Well, let me also hide these axes and for this one. Nice and clean. We have a surface passing through that point, which incidentally I don't need to see it either. And I have a curve up there. So now we're going to go to surface, sweep with tangency. So linear line with tangency option, the fifth one that we're looking at. And the guide curve is here, and the tangency surface is there. It may or may not be able to do it. There we are. It did it. So it drew a surface. It drew a surface that is tangent to that complicated surface, and it passes through that guide curve. You can actually change the color if you want to see it better. Let me actually change the color of this fellow. How about that? Properties. Let me change this thing to yellow. Okay, good, good. Now let me go and make this surface, this curve, more complicated. So I go up there. I'll make it more complicated. Actually, let me make let me draw another spline and delete this one. Another spline, like so, like so, like so, and like so. Okay, and I can, okay, and I can either delete this thing or make a construction. That's entirely up to you, because I'm not going to use it. Exit. Let's see if it works now. Yeah, it's using it. You can see that. It's using that. Let's try another one. Let's go here. And let me change that. Well, it's going to come back and say, I can't do it. As simple as that. Doesn't mean that whatever you want is going to happen, because the software may not be able to achieve what you're looking for. Okay, that's pretty much it. We have looked at the cases. We have looked at the subtypes of 4 and 5 with reference curve and with tangency curve, tangency surface.